and welcome to the Itinerary. Recently, Go With Tourism held a 2-day virtual event that brought together great minds from around New Zealand to address workforce challenges within tourism and hospitality. Our aim was to develop solutions that could improve upon and build our workforce. From our 108 guests, we had representatives from 80 organisations, including industry, associations, education institutes, unions, and local and central government. Boy, was there a lot of people. Everyone was split evenly into smaller groups to debate the issues at hand, collaborate, and pinpoint the ideas that could best help our industry. On day 2 of our Wānanga, 4 key ideas were chosen to be shared with the Tourism Minister, Stuart Nash, and the co-chairs of the newly formed Industry Transformation Plan also were there to have these ideas shared with. These 4 solutions form the basis of the action plan that we are about to release this week. Then in February 2022, we will release a more in-depth action plan called Action Plan 2, using the full range of ideas and solutions and material collected from across the Wānanga. And let me tell you, from this discussion today, you will hear the range of things that were discussed, because it wasn't just the 4 solutions that were presented to the Minister. To help me paint a picture of the Go With Tourism Workforce Wānanga, I have 3 key individuals here with me today. Matt John, CEO of Deliver It, and our fantastic host and facilitator of the Wānanga, and 2 of the 3 co-chairs of the ITP. We've got John Crocker, National Secretary for the Unite Union, and Carl Woodhead, Tourism Branch Acting General Manager for the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, MBIE. So first of all, gentlemen, I think it would be great to get an overview of the Tourism Industry Transformation Plan and how it will assist the industry going forward. Carl, I'll go to you first.
Sure thing. Thanks, Matt. So the Tourism Industry Transformation Plan, or ITP as we call it, is a partnership with the tourism industry, the unions, Māori, workers and government to transform tourism in Aotearoa New Zealand to a more regenerative model. A leadership group with representation across these groups and more has been set up to lead the ITP. Tourism was selected for an ITP because of its significance to the New Zealand economy and because the loss of international visitors as the result of COVID-19 gives us an opportunity to rebuild a more regenerative tourism system. The ITP will at first be focused on enabling better work for the tourism and hospitality industry. Providing better work and opportunities for those to develop and grow in the tourism system is a key part of creating a regenerative tourism system.
Very nice. And obviously, John, you are one of the co-chairs of the ITP. What does the ITP mean for our industry, or for you, where you stand as a co-chair?
I think for me, as a co-chair representing the unions, look, it represents opportunity. This industry transformation plan has come at exactly the right time. The industry's faced a lot of challenges, but I think there was a sense before that it could be doing a little bit better, and I think there's a lot of energy. There are a lot of great ideas coming out right now. And it's just, I'm really excited as to what could come out of this.
Yeah, I agree. Look, employment will be the focus of the first stage of the ITP. So it's quite coincidental we held our Workforce Wānanga now, and as it's all coming together. So can you shed any insight, gentlemen, on why employment is the first thing the ITP will work on, and also if the industry-led action like our Wānanga will assist you? Carl, go to you first, if I may.
So we've heard through industry surveys and engagement with the sector that the issues with the tourism workforce is one of the biggest challenges the sector is facing, not just right now, but it has been for a number of years. We know these are not issues that are unique to COVID-19. A number of systemic challenges have long affected the ability of tourism and hospitality businesses to find staff with the skills and experience they need and to provide high-quality jobs for New Zealanders. This focus will aim to address some of the systemic challenges that have long affected the ability of tourism and hospitality businesses to find and retain these staff. For us, the other thing for us is that the industry was in agreement about needing to do something on workforce. So for us, having workforce as the first stage of the ITP made sense because we had a bunch of people ready and willing to deal with this common issue.
Nice. Look, group work isn't everyone's cup of tea. However, that's exactly what we asked for from our attendees. Day 1 of our Wānanga was when we put people into smaller working groups, many of whom would have been strangers to one another, may not have ever been connected to one another, and we asked them to debate, brainstorm, and collaborate together. Quite a task at hand, to be honest. And throughout that day, Matt, John, Grania, and Carl were jumping in and out of these working groups to listen and provide helpful direction and feedback. So Gentlemen, let's shed some light into this process. Firstly, Matt Johns, how well did our attendees work together?
Remarkably well, actually. So initially, we knew that we were going to have a challenge, being that everything had to go online and become digital. We really wanted them to be in the same place so we could engage. But we ended up coming up with a pretty cool plan that seemed to work incredibly well. Initially, there was a little bit of feeling out of one another and understanding what everyone was trying to achieve. But interestingly, one of the things that helped those in attendance really get going was helping each other figure out the digital platform, which was kind of an unexpected outcome. So there was a lot of helping hand and instruction going on, allowing the facilitators to just move slightly backwards and let it naturally take place. But they were all very, very keen, had all committed the time, and were clearly here to solve some problems.
And look, we set some pretty clear guidelines, didn't we, Matt, about like what people needed to do to be able to get the most out of our wānanga. Did you have to tell anyone off, or did everyone play within the rules?
I don't know if I had to tell anyone off, but I certainly was very clear on my guidance. There was a couple of occasions, of course, when I needed to remind individuals of what we were ultimately trying to achieve. And as soon as we did that, it was actually quite easy to keep everyone back on track. One of the things that we asked every individual to do was to not come with preconceived ideas and to be open to scaffold on one another's ideas, to genuinely get more creative thinking going, and not necessarily fall into the obvious, this is what we should do because it's kind of obvious. This was an opportunity to think 3 or 4 steps beyond that. And I was really impressed at the ability of the group to continue to do that collectively in a really collaborative way.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed to see how all these like-minded individuals, but also very different, came together over those 2 days. But actually how they formed relationships beyond the wānanga. We've now seen these groups come together and start working on some of these things together to action them now, which was always a hope of our wānanga, was that it was led by the industry. Were there, my question, John, to you next is, were there attendees taking this challenge we gave them seriously? You dropped in and out throughout the days. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, they definitely were taking it very seriously. I think, relating to what Matt was saying, you noticed that, you had to move people on because they'd focus on something and want to keep working on it. So, no, we've got to progress along this track. One of the things that blew me away as more of a floating observer moving through the groups was the output and the workload. Because you'd go into one group and you'd see what they were doing, and then you'd come back a bit later and they'd moved along so far and they produced so much. It was great energy running through the whole thing.
I agree. I don't think people realized in those groups how much they were doing. We gave these problem statements and we started to ask, I believe, Matt Johns, you say, what does need to be true, or whatever the word is. What was it that you asked them?
What needs to be true?
What needs to be true? And they started delving into this. And I actually think what was really cool was everyone started to go, actually, we all know this problem. We keep discussing it until it's killed. And they started seeing all these different solutions and started to go, actually, no, we've discussed that now. And I loved hearing it, which was, let's move on. And I'm with you, John. Every time I went into another room, they had moved so fast and so quickly. It blew me away. Carl, obviously, you were jumping in and out over the 2 days as well. What did you think of the ideas, obviously, being discussed on that first and second day?
I thought they were incredibly exciting. I mean, the thing for me was, like, firstly, the pace that people were moving at and their thinking was incredible, and just being able to do that online was incredible as well. And just seeing how people were energized and excited and focused on the future and taking these ideas, like all of them were taken seriously, all of them were pulled apart and then put back together. And it was just, I thought it was fantastic and really exciting to see.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed seeing the camaraderie that was building over the 2 days, considering they didn't know each other, and especially against the little bit of competition between team north, south, west, east. So, Matt, what was your view? Because obviously there was a lot being discussed. You were in and out, and you were tasked with an ambitious task of obviously bringing in these over 100 attendees. What was your view on what was being discussed over those 2 days?
Yeah, I liked where the thinking went. Initially, we were pretty careful in the way that we curated this to encourage additional thinking, not just landing on a singular idea and then repeated iteration. We were genuinely challenging individuals to come up with a fundamentally different idea to the first one. So distinctively different possibilities to overcome the problem, which is the way that we articulated it. And I liked that we all forced people to do that without talking initially, because that really worked. We were initially a little bit worried as to whether or not that would translate to a digital forum, because normally in a face-to-face environment, I'd do that in a way to make sure that people weren't cheating. They were genuinely coming up with their own ideas. But they used the digital platform incredibly well. They got their head around it quickly and came up with a really interesting range of ideas. Some were foundational, some were about fixing some of the aspects of foundation, and others genuinely were transformational. So that created a natural positive conflict and some really interesting discussion.
No, I'd agree. And the one thing I think we kept having to remind people was, as they were moving through different ideas, was they're not getting lost. And the amazing technology that you brought to the table, Matt, the Lucid Spark whiteboard, was an incredible tool to capture all of those awesome ideas. And I think when you get a chance to look back at these action plans that are soon to be launched, everyone will have an idea that we've captured pretty much everything, which was pretty well. Carl, to you, was there any idea shared that really stood out to you that you went, holy crap, that really surprised me?
I'm not sure anything surprised me, but the one that really stood out, I think, as having the greatest potential was the Accord. I think the Accord as an idea has the most to offer in terms of lifting the performance of employers in the sector and enabling consumers to make more informed choices about the types of businesses they support. It also allows potential workers to be more informed about potential employers. It'll help to spread the responsibility and the benefits of creating better work for the tourism system. So for me, that was probably the most exciting idea that came out of the day.
I love that you say that. What I'd love to tell you is that group has continued to work on it. So they actually formed a smaller group to get some stuff together to come back to the ITP and then talk to the large group that they're in. So that work has continued, which has been incredible, as well as the toolkit. John, anything that was said that surprised you, took you just like gobsmacked you over the 2 days?
One thing that I think came through, because we've got a lot of industry leaders, and some of the way the issues were described was as a perception problem, was just because they're business-minded. Oh, I've got a perception problem. What's the solution? We'll market it. We'll just market our way out of this. We just need to spend more money on marketing and we'll change that perception. And I noticed that people actually challenged that, and I was very happy to see them challenge it. It was like, hold on. We can't just paint over a problem here. We need to address the issues, improve the situation, and then, celebrate that and advertise it.
No, I quite like that you're talking about that perception side, because it's quite an interesting one when it comes to everyone having a perception about what an organisation can do, what a government organisation should be doing, what an education provider should be doing. And I think that really got challenged on day one, but also that whole marketing thing. Everyone went there straight away. I'm not going to lie, it was always, marketing. And I think that's why we're really lucky that we had Matt Johns to push that stuff forward. So Matt, I'll throw the question to you. Was there anything that surprised you or stood out? Probably quite a lot, I'd imagine.
Yeah, look, there were a bunch of really interesting things. I think the last comments you just made there are spot on. There was definitely an inclination initially to want to market our way out of it. But the problem with marketing is that it draws attention to reality. And if the reality is not up with the perception you're trying to create, you've just created a new problem. So what that did trigger was some really interesting, challenging discussion on both customer experience and what that actually is, not just customer service, but really well-designed proactive customer experiences, and how it's almost as a symbiotic relationship with the employee experience. So recognizing the connection between the two as strategic functions, not just something the marketing team does or something HR needs to take care of. The recognition of the symbiotic relationship between the two was quite palpable, and it triggered some really challenging discussion. Really positive, though, because I think it's created a foundation for rebuilding the industry as a whole in an entirely new image.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And it's interesting because I think we started getting near a conversation about creating a service of excellence, which was quite exciting, which moved away from that campaign. Look, by the time we wrapped up on day one, which let me tell you, as a facilitator and being there with Matt Johns and obviously others here, was a very big day, and I'm pretty sure our bums were numb and our mouths were pretty dry as well from just all the talking. We'd asked our groups to have selected one solution that they would share with the minister and also the co-chairs the next day. And in the morning of day two, our groups put more thought and planning into their idea, and then they presented that afternoon. And that's a big challenge in itself. So overall, go to you first, Matt. What did you think of the solutions that were selected by the attendees? Because obviously you had an overview of all 4 rooms, but also were indirectly the lead facilitator on all of them.
That's right. Look, I feel like the ideas that were selected were somewhere between aspirational and practical. There was, of course, they don't have the opportunity yet to test any of the ideas, and we theoretically did that with the question you just outlined earlier: what needs to be true for this to work? So to go through that thinking is quite challenging in a digital format. But I think the ideas that they ended up selecting are almost foundational and are doable in a realistic time frame, and potentially set the scene for transformation. So in the absence of some of these ideas, any meaningful transformation is going to be difficult. So I liked that they recognized that these are needed. The accord influencing the influences, the toolkit ideas. There's some really cool foundational blocks that need to be put in place. They're all incredibly doable and practical and in realistic timeframes. But I think the key is that it then enables a genuine transformation to take place after that time.
Which feeds into these lovely gentlemen who are obviously part of the ITP. So, John and Carl, considering you would have heard ideas thrown about, were you surprised by the choices that were made by our attendees? I'll go to you first, Carl.
I think the ideas that were developed were clear choices to be progressed. They were all strong ideas which hold potential for meaningful action. I'm sure the groups chose them as they saw the value in them, and I believed in the idea, and that they believed in the idea enough to present them to the minister and co-chairs of the ITP. So yeah, I don't think I was surprised, but what was really heartening was the level of commitment to the ideas.
Nice. And John, any thoughts?
Would have had a natural synergy. Like we've talked about, the Accord was a great idea, and then the resource, the centralized toolkit as well, but did work together. I mean, just from a union point of view, if we've got an Accord and we're going to have good employment contracts, and then we actually have them, or we have some good health and safety policies, just how things could interconnect so well, really impressed me.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. Look, Carl and John, from your viewpoint, do you feel that the Wānanga was a win for our industry? Carl, go to you first.
Oh, definitely. It achieved what it set out to do, to get individuals from around the system to come together and have future and solution-focused conversations about the workforce. For me, what was really exciting was being part of a group and part of 2 days where there was genuine excitement, there was genuine engagement, and people were focused on a positive future. That was really great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. John, what was your thoughts?
I agree as well. I think that the 2 days was a great success. It was good to see so many industry people, and they're often competitors, but there was a real a sense beyond that. There was a real camaraderie as a sector that they could work together and improve their outcomes for everybody. And I thought that was really positive to see and be a part of.
Yeah, it excited me and actually gives me the goosebumps still talking about it, because a lot of people, when I came up with this idea, thought I was crazy bringing all these people. Now, finally, Matt Johns, you're an experienced facilitator of events. In your professional view, how did this event go, particularly considering the fact we had to take it online and we had to facilitate a lot of group work virtually, which in itself comes with its challenges?
Look, we had aspirations for this event, and we really wanted to trigger change. And I think we were blown away by the outcome. Like I certainly was. I thought that we would have more challenges, both technically and engagement-wise, than we did. In fact, I was pleasantly surprised that the level of engagement stayed so high, and in fact started to elevate at the back end of the second day. Now, even in a physical space, there are some things that would be able to get that you couldn't get online. Body language, for example, is a tough one. Side conversations, all of those things weren't able to be had. But very rarely do you see energy going up at the back end of an exercise like this. So the excitement was palpable. you could see the energy starting to build. So from my view, this is all about recognizing that this is the start, and this kind of thinking and collaboration needs to continue. This isn't the end by any stretch of the imagination.
And I love that you said that, because actually one of our attendees said that on day one, there is no end. So it's kind of a nice way to wrap this up. So thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen, and sharing your honest views. I might be a little bit biased, but I do agree with you all that it was a fantastic success. Actually, I read on one of our LinkedIn posts that it was the best tourism event ever. And then the other LinkedIn post that I wrote was best virtual event of 2021. So if we can celebrate that, I'm totally keen. The outcomes of this event have been turned into a short-term action plan, which will be released this week. So check out our Go With Tourism website to find that and more. In it, we recommend who should take ownership and what additional support is needed to move these ideas forward. Plus, watch out for our long-term action plan, which is due out in February 2022. Research and strategy specialist Angus and Associates are currently in the process of analysing and consolidating the full range of ideas and materials collected across our Go With Tourism Workforce Wānanga, and I can already tell you it's going to provide our industry with some fantastic opportunities to explore. Well, that's it for me today. Tune in next week for our final episode of the Itinerary ever. I can't believe that's it. After 2 seasons, we're done. Ka kite anō.